My name is Camila Duarte, and for a long time I believed that name meant absolutely nothing, because the people I eliminated never had the chance to ask who I was. I lived in the shadows, and in the shadows my name was just an irrelevant detail. What truly defined who I was were the lives I took without hesitation. I was a contract killer, cold enough to pull the trigger without flinching, quick enough to disappear before anyone realized that the fate of an entire family had changed forever. For years, I repeated to myself that it was just work, that there were no victims, only contracts. But that lie, which once seemed so comfortable, became the chain that dragged me deeper and deeper. I, Camila, prided myself on my precision. I would go in, accomplish my tasks, and leave. And the more efficient I became, the further I drifted from any vestige of humanity. I made coldness my refuge, indifference my protection, and violence the language I spoke without an accent. The truth is, I had become the kind of person my mother would be afraid to look in the eye, because something inside me simply died before my body died. But even so, I insisted on believing that I was in control, that everything was under my dominion, that evil worked for me and not against me. The most terrifying thing is that I, Camila, felt nothing but an inner silence that grew a little more with each life taken. And this absence of feeling was so profound that it convinced me I was above any consequence. I thought no one saw me, that no one would judge me, that no one would ever reach me. I became an expert at cleaning up traces, but I never realized there was a trace inside me that I couldn't erase. And it was this trail, invisible to my eyes, that finally led me to the limit I had been avoiding admitting. Because the instant my heart began to fail, I discovered that nothing stays hidden forever. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, do you believe that God tries to warn us before allowing us to fall? I know that this testimony, if this has already sparked something in you, stay with me. Subscribe and leave a like before we continue, because what comes next is impossible to hear without preparing your heart. Let's follow this revelation together. I, Camila Duarte, learned early on that the world had no room for those who hesitated. I grew up hearing that those who showed fear were swallowed up, and perhaps that's why I became someone who built strength on the pain of others. Life in crime didn't begin with a grand decision. It approached slowly, like a shadow that stretches out without you noticing. First came the easy money, the kind that arrives without questions and promises to solve all the holes that poverty leaves inside us. Then came the influential people, those who treated me as if I were important, powerful, above the rules that govern the weak. I felt valued for the first time, and this intoxicating feeling held me captive with a force I didn't recognize as a prison. Gradually, I realized that the respect I received didn't come from admiration, but from fear, and the fear of others became my fuel. I walked through the city as if I owned it, believing that my mere gaze was enough to silence any threat. Violence became my language, and I spoke it with a fluency that would frighten me today, but which at the time seemed natural. Weapons, cars, money, dangerous alliances. All of this gave me the impression that I had finally gained the control that life had tried to deny me. I confused power with purpose, and I confused adrenaline with life, but none of that filled the void inside me. On the contrary, each achievement left me hungrier, as if something inside me always demanded more, and the more I fed that hunger, the more it grew. And the more it grew, the less I could see who I was becoming. I walked so far into the darkness that my eyes became accustomed to it, and that's how I stopped realizing how spiritually blind I was. I thought this dark world was my strength, when in reality it was the abyss calling to me by name without me realizing it. But there was a specific moment, an instant I could never erase, and it was precisely there that my ruin began to take shape. Because everything changed the day I pulled the trigger for the first time, and nothing prepared me for what happened next. I remember the day everything truly began to change within me, even though I wasn't aware of it at the time. I remember the gun in my hand, its weight, the coldness of the metal against my skin, and how strangely it seemed to suit me. The first contract was simple: enter, eliminate, exit. I did exactly as I was taught. There was no emotion, no doubt, just a clear objective before me. But what I didn't expect was the sensation that overwhelmed my body the instant I pulled the trigger. For a second, the world seemed to stop, and in that suspended silence, something inside me shifted as if a door had been slowly pushed, open into a darkness I didn't yet know. When the body hit the ground, the impact wasn't just physical, it was spiritual. I felt a kind of heat rise up my spine, a mixture of adrenaline and power that enveloped me like a sweet poison. As I fled the scene, I realized my heart wasn't racing from fear, but from something far more dangerous. And that feeling, that kind of dark satisfaction, was the beginning of my end. From that moment on, something inside me fell silent. Compassion, empathy, a sense of boundaries. Everything became distant, as if ripped away without warning. I, Camilla, didn't know it yet, but that first trigger didn't just kill the person in front of me. It killed a part of my soul. It was there that I stopped being a woman trying to survive and began to become someone consumed by my own choices. And the most terrible thing of all is that that shot echoed inside me for years. It opened a door that I could never close, and it was through that door that darkness truly entered. After that first shot, it felt like something inside me had been permanently switched off. I walked as if enveloped in a fog, seeing everything with the same coldness with which one observes a lost object in the street. The people around me ceased to be individuals. They became obstacles, tools, or threats. Nothing more than that. With each new contract, I realized I felt less than before, as if my heart was getting used to the absence of emotion, to the point of turning death into routine and violence into a kind of second nature. I justified each action by saying it was part of the job, but deep down, I knew I was drifting further and further away from the person I once imagined myself to be. Over time, I began to take pride in this coldness, as if it were a kind of hidden medal I carried. I, Camila Duarte, could enter any environment without showing nervousness, without hesitating, without letting any trace of humanity hinder me. It was as if I had transformed into a precise and silent machine, trained to obey only the logic of my distorted world. I looked at the targets and saw only numbers, positions, and trajectories. Never families, never stories, never lives. And the more I erased these details, the easier it became to pull the trigger. Indifference became so pervasive that I no longer remembered what it felt like to experience fear, guilt, or compassion. It was as if all those emotions had been drained from me, leaving only an empty space that I filled with money, contracts, and the illusion that I was building something. But this emptiness didn't diminish. On the contrary, it grew silently, like a darkness spreading through the corners of an abandoned house. And I, blinded by this habit of ignoring my soul, didn't realize how much I was becoming a slave to what I once thought I controlled. I continued in this blindness, believing I could live eternally within this absolute cold, when one day, without warning, I realized that what I called strength was, in fact, a weakness I was hiding from myself. And it was precisely at that moment that life decided to show me the price of my own darkness. I always believed I controlled my own story, as if each choice I made was a carefully placed piece on a chessboard that only I understood. But in the end, life doesn't follow the script we imagine, and mine reached its end so quickly that I barely had time to comprehend what was happening. I was on a seemingly simple job, just another one. Of those contracts I'd fulfilled hundreds of times, when something unexpected pierced the air, cutting through the night as if it were a belated warning that my time was up. The shot didn't come from where I expected. It didn't come from the enemy. It didn't come from an elaborate trap. It came from one of the directions I never imagined, because death doesn't always announce where it will come from. When I felt the impact on my chest, the first thought that crossed my mind wasn't fear, nor regret. It was disbelief. It was as if my mind refused to accept that someone like me could be reached. The pain wasn't immediate. First came a strange, deep warmth that slowly spread through my body, followed by a feeling of heaviness, as if every muscle was being pulled down by invisible hands. The sounds around me began to fade, and my vision blurred, as if darkness were closing in, swallowing everything I thought I could control. I tried to breathe, but the air seemed to slip through my fingers. I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't obey. And there, fallen on the ground, I realized that for the first time, I had no control over anything. No weapon, no strategy, no reflex could save me. Death is not kind, and it doesn't negotiate. It simply arrives, and when it arrives, it takes everything with it. As the blood spread beneath me, I had the strange sensation that the world was pulling away, as if I were being pulled backward while everything continued moving forward without me. And it was in that instant, that exact instant when life slipped away from me, that I realized death wasn't the end. It was merely the beginning of something much bigger, much deeper, and much more terrifying than anything I had faced up to that point. And that's when I discovered my body had fallen. But I was no longer inside it. The moment my vision went blank, I thought it was all over. I thought that would be absolute silence, the final emptiness, the somber rest of someone who lived without deserving a second chance. But that's not what happened. On the contrary, it was as if I were ripped from within myself, as if something invisible had grabbed my spirit by the back and pulled me out of the body I always believed I controlled. Suddenly, I was standing, but I couldn't feel the ground. I was breathing, but no air was entering. I could see, but my eyes were closed. It was the first time I realized there was a separation between who I was and what I had inhabited for so many years. I looked down and saw myself lying on the floor, motionless, bathed in blood, surrounded by screams that seemed too distant to be real. The scene seemed to unfold behind thick glass, as if I were observing life from a place where time no longer followed the same rules. I reached out to touch my own face, but my fingers pierced the air as if I were made of smoke. I tried to speak, but no sound came out. And in that absolute silence, I felt for the first time what I had always run from. Fear. A fear so profound that it seemed to pierce my soul and reveal parts of myself that I had spent my life hiding. Confusion overwhelmed me. I tried to return to my body, tried to move towards it, tried to scream for help, but nothing responded. It was as if I were trapped between two worlds, no longer belonging to either. Time had no meaning there. There were no seconds, no minutes, only a continuous feeling that something much bigger than me was about to happen. I felt a presence around me, a force I couldn't see, but which seemed to observe every fragment of my story, as if my choices were being weighed before me. And it was when that presence began to manifest itself that I understood. I wasn't alone in that space between life and eternity. Because in that silent emptiness, someone was coming towards me. As I stood there, suspended between what I was and what I would never be again, I felt a shift in the air, as if the atmosphere itself had paused to observe my destiny. Darkness around me began to slowly recede, making way for a light that did not blind but revealed. It was a vibrant, pulsating light, so profound that it seemed to pierce through everything I had hidden for years. My first instinct was to recoil, like someone fleeing a mirror that shows what they don't want to see. But there was nowhere to run. That light reached me from all sides, exposing every fragment of my soul, as if my entire story were written before me in letters that could not be erased. And then he appeared, not as a distant figure nor as a ghostly image created by my frightened mind. He was there, real, present, steadfast. And even without having heard his name at that moment, my spirit recognized him before consciousness. Jesus. There was no crown, no throne, no grand gestures. There was only a gaze that did not accuse, but revealed. A gaze that pierced every lie I told, every crime I committed, every life I destroyed, as if he were seeing not only what I did, but what I failed to be. It was in that instant that I understood that there is no word that can describe the impact of being seen by him exactly as you are. His presence was not one of condemnation, but of absolute truth. And faced with this truth, I felt my insides tremble in a way I had never felt before when facing armed men or dangerous situations. Because no enemy could cause me more fear than standing before the one who sees even what we try to forget. I saw myself condemned without him, saying a single word. It was as if every act of mine was before him, not to be recounted, but to be felt. And I felt it. I felt the weight of the blood I spilled, the echo of the screams I ignored, the void I created in the lives I traversed, like a shadow of destruction. Jesus didn't raise his voice. He didn't lift his hand. He didn't need to show me any image to make me understand the gravity of my life. He simply looked inside me, and in that look, I realized what I never wanted to admit. I was my own destruction. All the choices I made, all the doors I opened, all the darkness I accepted, all of that brought me to this point, before the only being before whom no mask survives. I wanted to say something. I wanted to ask for forgiveness, to justify myself, to explain, to plead, but every word died before it could come out. The truth is, before him, no excuse stands. And it was precisely when I felt there was nothing left that could save me that I realized something even more terrifying. The revelation that was to come wasn't about me. It was about the fate of those who live shedding blood. When Jesus' gaze pierced my soul, I realized he wasn't there merely to reveal who I had been, but to show me what my choices had produced in the spiritual world. There was no warning, no preparation. Suddenly, everything around me changed, as if a veil had been torn away before my eyes. The light that had previously surrounded me began to recede, giving way to a deep, thick, almost living darkness. But this darkness was not the absence of light. It was a consequence I myself had built brick by brick, each time I chose to shed blood without looking back. I felt a chill rising through my feet, as if the very earth were reacting to the weight of my decisions. Then Jesus stretched out his hand, not to touch me, but to point. And when he pointed, I saw. Before me, a space appeared that seemed to have no ground or horizon, an abyss that pulsed with the echo of interrupted lives. Every face I had tried to forget reappeared, not as shadows, but as living presences, looking at me with what I never wanted to face. Pain. It wasn't hatred. It wasn't revenge. It was pain. A pain so deep it seemed to pierce through time itself. I heard cries that didn't belong to this world, laments that surpassed any human suffering. And as I watched, I realized that every sound, every voice, every expression was a direct consequence of what I had caused. I saw mothers crying in the corners of their homes, holding photographs that would never be updated again. I saw children growing up without knowing what their father's voice sounded like. I saw families broken for no reason, lives left empty because I, Camila, chose coldness as my path. Jesus didn't need to explain anything. Each scene spoke for itself, and each one took root within me like thorns tearing at my conscience. I felt not only their pain, but what that pain produced spiritually. It was as if I were being confronted with the final reflection of my deeds, and that reflection was terrifying. Then the abyss began to move, as if breathing. A force pulled from within it, calling, clamoring for those who had lived shedding blood. At that moment, I understood that torment was not a punishment created by God, but the natural destiny of those who feed on destruction. It was like falling eternally into everything we caused, like being swallowed by the echo of our own actions. My soul felt the weight of this reality, and for the first time, I realized that nothing I had experienced on earth could be compared to what was happening there. The sensation was of being torn from oneself, forced to confront every wound I had inflicted on the world. I felt I was about to be swallowed by that abyss when something unexpected happened. In the midst of that living darkness, the presence of Jesus remained steadfast, illuminating just enough for me to understand one last truth, a truth that would change everything. Because before the abyss completely consumed me, he showed me that there was still a choice. When the abyss seemed ready to swallow me whole, I felt something change around me. The darkness that breathed like a hungry animal began to lose strength, as if being pushed back by an authority that did not allow contestation. The light of Jesus remained firm, immutable, cutting through the terror that tried to engulf me. In the midst of that reality that surpassed any human, understanding, I heard his voice, not with my ears, but with my soul. It was a voice that didn't need volume to carry power, a voice that seemed to touch every wounded, destroyed, and forgotten part of my being. He said there was still something for me, something undeserved, something unearned, something that didn't fit with the life I chose to live. He spoke of opportunity, of return, of change. Before I could comprehend it, I was thrown backward, as if falling back into my own body. I opened my eyes with difficulty, hearing distant voices, beeping machines, people running. The physical pain was intense, but nothing compared to the spiritual weight I carried within me. I knew I hadn't returned to continue the same life. I returned to repair what I could and face the consequences of my past. For the next few days, I sought out families, confessed crimes, and asked for forgiveness with a sincerity that only those who have seen eternity can feel. I didn't gain freedom, but I gained something that freedom never gave me: conscience. From that moment on, I understood that redemption doesn't begin when God speaks, but when we finally decide to listen. And although I didn't know what lay ahead, I realized there was still something I needed to say. Not about myself, but about those who are listening to me now. Because there is a truth that every human being needs to face before time runs out. After everything I've been through, I've understood that the greatest illusion a human being can have is believing they can hide something from God. I, Camila Duarte, spent years nurturing this lie, believing that if my steps were calculated, if my actions were silent, and if coldness dominated my heart, then no consequences would reach me. I thought I could control the darkness like someone holding a weapon, but the truth is that darkness always exacts a price, and it always does so sooner than we expect. For a long time, I tried to convince myself that my actions would have no consequences, that each life I took simply vanished, that silence erased traces, that emotional distance made me immune to the impact of the evil I sowed. But when I stood before eternity, before Jesus, and before the absolute truth about who I was, I understood something that no bullet, no escape, and no coldness could protect me from. I understood that every choice we make builds a destiny, not a symbolic, philosophical, or poetic destiny, but a real, concrete, inevitable destiny a destiny that one day will be revealed before us without defense, without masks, without justifications. There, in that timeless encounter, I realized that nothing remains hidden forever. I realized that every face, every name, every tear I caused hadn't disappeared. They were engraved in eternity, not as accusations, but as truths. And before God, the truth leaves no room for the character we create to live on earth. The truth reveals only what we are, not what we pretend to be. Therefore today, even though I don't deserve the second chance I received, I need to tell you what no one told me when there was still time. No one can deceive God. He sees what we do, but He also sees what we can become. He knows our abysses, but He also knows our ways out. He sees the worst in us, but still offers a chance for redemption while the heart still beats. Eternity has shown me that God isn't looking for perfect people. He's looking for sincere people, people who admit what they carry, people who don't try to cover up their sin, people who don't turn mistakes into routine. What destroyed me for so many years wasn't just the evil I did, but the lie I repeated to myself. I have time. That phrase was the deadliest trap I've ever believed, because nobody has guaranteed time. Nobody knows when the last step, the last breath, the last opportunity to change will be. If you are listening to this now, know that you are not listening by chance. There is no such thing as chance when it comes to eternity. Perhaps you are facing something you have been trying to hide. Perhaps there is a mistake you keep justifying. Perhaps there is a path you know you need to abandon, but you keep postponing it. Perhaps there is a pain you try to silence with strength, pride, or distractions. I know what it's like to live like that. I lived like that for years, and I tell you with all the truth I have today, the price is too high to continue hiding what is slowly destroying your soul. When I stood before that spiritual abyss, I realized that God never wanted to lose me. It was I who chose to distance myself. God never stopped seeing me. It was I who closed my eyes. And when He finally showed me the destiny I was choosing, there, in that instant between life and eternity, I understood that He did not want my condemnation. He wanted my conscience to be awakened, and now He wants to awaken yours. Don't wait for life to place you before an invisible frontier to realize what needed to change while there was still a chance. Don't wait for the final fall to understand that God warned you dozens of times over the years. Don't wait to look at eternity with belated regret, to wish you had done what needed to be done while there was still light. Speak to God now. Surrender what weighs you down. Acknowledge what holds you back. Ask for strength to let go of what destroys you. Allow Him to reveal the past before time runs out. It doesn't matter what you did. What matters is what you do from this moment on. If God decided to give me back my life, even though I was the worst person I've ever been, then there is hope for anyone who truly wants to be transformed. And if this story touched you in any way, stay close. Don't turn your heart away. God still wants to speak to you, and perhaps this is just the first of many warnings, directions, and revelations He wants to give you. Sign up and walk with me through the upcoming testimonies, because just as it happened to me, your life can change before you even realize it. And when God decides to act, no one remains the same.